Hello there, how are you? So happy to see you. Welcome to What the Flick. I am Christy Lemire, and that is Alonso and that is Matt Atchity. The World Cup is going on, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're going to do a little segment on soccer movies. There are many, many soccer movies in the world.
Footy, if you must.
I don't know anything about soccer, but we watch a lot of World Cup in my house. We wake up early to watch South Korea versus Mexico and things like that. So we'll talk about that. You guys don't, clearly.
If Spain starts doing better, I will feel compelled, as I did, what, 8 years ago?
They do it every 4 years.
Yeah, I think 8 years ago was when Spain really was doing great, and so I found myself actually watching.
Yes, we will talk about that.
Until that point, it's still sports.
So a lot of people did, though, go see Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom over the weekend. It was #1, as I think probably everybody expected it would be, but it was actually, it had a bigger opening than they anticipated. They figured it would only do about $130 million, and it actually opened with $150 million in the US, but it's been out globally for a couple of weeks now.
Right.
And so now it's made like $700 million or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder
how much. Change how you feel about it.
I still don't like
People like it, Alonso.
But do they?
But do they?
They bought a ticket, but like, is anybody genuinely ginned up about this movie? Or is it just sort of like a national obligation?
And will there be a big drop next week after everyone's seen it?
Probably not next week, because nothing big opens this week except for Sicario.
Yeah.
But you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp is the week after.
Right.
So I think the analysts here are underestimating the power of the younger audience that wants to go see dinosaurs, right? I mean, even though this is a PG-13 movie and it's scary, kids want to see the dinosaur movie. And it's less about, I mean, sure, does it help that you have Chris Pratt in it? Sure, but people aren't lining up to see that it's Chris Pratt. It's that it's dinosaurs. And I think that the difference between this and say something like Solo is that Solo relies on a sense of nostalgia that you don't really need around a dinosaur movie. Honestly, it's Jurassic Park series, you know you're gonna get good enough dinosaur action that's kind of all you need. And the barrier of entry, I think, for a kid being into this is relatively low.
Well, Christy pointed out something during the review that I wish we'd kind of expanded on. It's not really appropriate for little kids.
No.
This movie has at least like 1.5 dino genocides in it.
The people get eaten.
Yeah, well I mean, that's fine. That's what you expect. But it was, but it's like crying dinosaurs who are doomed. Like that's a lot, you know, for kids, I think. The other thing is, this is a movie, I think, where I really started to notice the PG-13 limitations the most. Because, as you say, there are like people getting chomped and stuff, and so little blood. In that PG-13 kind of way, where you can shoot someone 8 times and there's like a little trickle.
Well, that's because paleontologists have taught us that dinosaurs swallow their food whole. And they don't chew it up, and they don't shake it like dogs. They just.
So like Toby Jones.
There are some moments though where there's some chomps, and there should be like
Toby Jones is still getting digested. He's like going through the body,
gushing out.
Yes. So it cost at least $170 million to make this movie, just to make it before marketing, and so it will do pretty well. I made almost that domestically alone in its opening weekend. It took in another $106.7 million from 68 markets for a foreign total of $561.5 million and $711 million globally. $202 million of that is China alone.
Because works in every language.
It is the universal language of fear, and so that was your #1 movie. And Incredibles 2 fell 56% in its second weekend. They
should have put more dinosaurs in it.
Is that
it? I mean, seriously.
Ocean's 8 has now crossed the $100 million mark domestically. It was #3 this weekend with $11.7 million. And so that's doing well. Deadpool 2 continues to do well all over the world. Again, the universal language of Ryan Reynolds being snarky. And so that's doing really well. That has made now $700 million worldwide.
The big sort of record-y thing of this weekend is, this is according to Box Office Mojo, this is only the second time ever that 2 different films have brought in over $100 million over 2 consecutive weekends.
Okay.
So between last weekend and this weekend, the last time it happened was in 2007 Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and Shrek the Third.
Okay. Also, you like this, Alonso, as an aficionado of drive-ins.
Yes.
A Wrinkle in Time, which has been out for a while, has now crossed the $100 million mark because it is playing in drive-ins with Incredibles 2.
Nice. Huh.
Yeah, so doing double feature of that, and then the movies split the profits that they make.
Which is a thing that studios do all the time. I remember years ago, like Parenthood came back into theaters months later. I was like, what? And then I looked at Variety, and it was at like 99.7 million, and they could have just like put it in a bunch of dollar houses, like, get it into the 100.
You brought up the record about it. We're getting $100 million openings back to back for the first time. It certainly helps that tickets get more expensive all the time. Like
this
every
is true.
time there's some. This is the thing that's been. It just makes me shake my head.
And these
for
are both
years.
3D, right?
Or they can be.
Incredibles.
They could be.
Theoretically,
I've been shaking my head for years watching every time some studio crows about their record-setting opening. It's like, okay, sure, because ticket prices went up $1.
Because it costs like $16
okay,
to
great,
go to the
fine.
other.
I mean, a little bit. I don't, at the risk of taking away from Ocean's 8 and them having the biggest opening weekend of the franchise, well, tickets are significantly more expensive than they were when those other films opened up. So it's easier to hit that number.
I think most reportage of that said that, like not adjusted for inflation.
We should also mention really fast, movies that did not do well at the box office, that is our good friend Gotti. So people keep listening to the elite critics and not to the real people.
The trolls
in the
behind
audience.
keyboards?
Right, people were listening because in its second week, Gotti just tanked. It made only $812,000. Granted, it's in fewer screens than it was its opening weekend. It's only in 466 theaters. It has now made $3.3 million in 2 weekends. I would think you would get a lot of people who just out of sheer curiosity have to see it. I saw a lot of Twitter chatter about like, now I gotta see it now.
I think they're gonna wait for
you think so?
Redbox or whatever.
Not worth $16.